Here goes nothing. Have you ever heard of an Armenian? Okay. This is, kind of planned. Well, it's all planned, obviously. I'm here with this recording device. I'm here with this thing that can record the moment that I'm experiencing right now. And I've decided to speak extemporaneously. Wow, my throat's dry. I'm going to speak extemporaneously, meaning every word that comes out of my mouth is just the thought in my head, right? Just say whatever comes to mind. Never mind how it got there. But just speak. So I'm going to speak. I'm going to tell a story, actually. It's the best way to articulate it. I mean, that is the most concise way. I'm a storyteller. Actually, that's what I've been doing for a living for a while. 15 plus years. The town I live in, 14 years. It's where I ended up. I was working, and I needed a place to put my family. So my family is here. Boom. So there will be natural breaks in what I talk about, and there's very limited. I'm under contract not to disclose a bunch of stuff. Like, there are things that I just can't say on camera, period. Right? To anyone. Not to anyone. People have to sign legal documents before I can tell them anything. Well, not any. There are just certain things I can't say, which is what makes this experiment, this research study that I'm doing, quite fascinating. Is it possible to self-edit extemporaneously? Right? Is it possible? And that's the risk you take, right? Every person is opening their mouth and putting ideas out there. Where those ideas come from? Somebody else said it and you agreed with it, so you just repeat it. Or, we all have thoughts that come from somewhere. Which ones are ours is the question, right? Which thoughts are ours? Okay, that might be a little profound for kicking this off, but that's really what I'm talking about. We, as humans, have things in common. Is it possible just to focus on those things? Paradigm shift, right? If that were possible. Just focus on the things that we have in common, that we agree upon, right? We all want to live forever. What? Yeah. There are different world religions. Every world religion talks about a heaven and living forever. And there's a vast majority of humans ascribe to that notion. Whatever that means. It's just a statistical reality. It's not an opinion. I'm speaking statistically. Human populations, we all want to live forever. And the problem is, some people say we must do it at the expense of others. Wait, what? A competition? Why? Why do you see it that way? Why is that the assumption? Like automatic assumption. It's a competition. It's like, why compete? It's like, why? Oh, that was my first live technical flub, since I am the producer. Oops, upside down now. Oh, this is perfect. This is great. This might be a good edit point. That was like episode 1 or something of the week. Alright, so now it's in there. It feels locked in. I need to get the angle back. Am I right? Yeah. Woo. That's exciting. It's brighter right now. Oh, man. I hope it's still recording, is it? Yeah, that don't make sense. Oh, this is fun. Yep, it's all going on. I'm not editing anything. Numbers are still ticking. For some reason, I see something I didn't see before, but that's okay. I'm figuring this out, and you're figuring it out as we go. I mean, I don't know how much of my face I even wanted to show at first, but I think it's out there. Oh, God, the angle's not right still. Still the angle's not right. So, that's too work in progress. Alright. Somewhere in this is an edit, so I don't know if we're still in day 1. I think we're definitely in day 2. Yeah. Technically, she's right in the middle of a live shoot that I'm not going to do. Here we go. I got it. Oh, maybe it is. Oh, yeah. I think it might be. There's light back there. Oh, okay. Light. And darkness. That's exactly what we're talking about. Where'd it go? Did it go away forever? Light. And darkness. I don't want to freak anybody out, but that's literally what we're talking about, right? What's true and what's false, what's the light of the truth when it is exposed, it's always there. Always there. But if you're not looking in the right direction, you just can't see it. Yeah, but when your eye falls upon it, you see it in your mind. It's back there, but your eye hasn't seen it yet. There's a horizon, you come over. This is extemporaneous. There's a horizon, you come over. And your eye and your whole body come into resolution. Come into resolution. But if you don't have the eyes to see, right? That's really the mind's eye, you know. The eyes to see is the mind's eye. Everybody's eyes, right? It's that expression, right? You need to have the eyes to see it. Well, none of us really have the eyes yet. None of us have the eyes yet. You know what I'm talking about? It's like, you know who you are. You're supposed to live forever. That's seems to be a common experience. And just analyzing that conception. Like, you think you're going to live forever. I mean, where am I on that? Right? What do I believe? That's the research. The person conducting the research and the subject of the research, right? I'm going to conduct an experiment on myself as the subject of this study. Do I believe I'm going to live forever? Or why do people think they're going to live forever? The majority of humans. Yeah. Analyze that proposition. And that's what this study is. So it's really a story, because we're all storytellers. We like stories. Everybody gravitates to stories. So I'm going to tell a story, and there's so many different stories. Like, if you don't like long stories, because that's the story I'm telling. I'm telling the long story, or a long kind of the whole story, I guess, which is long, right? When I tell the whole story, it's the longer version, maybe. But it's so full of other short stories, and that's like, we just love our 2-hour stories, our 3-hour stories that are just exhibited for us, or the longer versions, the more drawn out 8-season versions, or 10-season versions, or 4-season versions. You know, it's like there's good stories that can have to be told in a long form, right? So that's what the beginning of this experiment I'm doing, is to just tell that story by telling all of the stories as they happen, right? Document it. What happens to me, right? This is it's like the cheapest experiment possible. Like, I can't hire somebody and a subject. He's like, oh, I'm actually interested in this concept, so why don't I just be the subject of it and document it and make it available immediately, and so everybody can kind of see it at the same time, right? Everybody can see it within a week of it happening. What's today? When I started recording, it was 9:40-ish. Oh yeah, that introduces the suspense for this particular entry. I can look and see how long I've been recording. So how many? That's when I put the glasses back on. But let's do that in a minute. I didn't check if this was a good low-light camera, but I know it's a good camera. I'll get into the light eventually. Yeah, I've already been in it. But as I tell a story, sometimes you have to set a mode, right? I didn't realize that actually was going to be the effect, the outcome, the result, like the setup. I liked where I am. I liked that I had the technology to do it, and the idea to do it, right? Like, this is the idea I want to spread among people who have ideas, all right? An idea for idea people. Oh, God. Right? Where that idea that I just had come from, you know. The idea is, before I forget it, which could happen before I say it, everybody that has an idea that they think will help the world, right? Yeah, this just occurred to me today. Everybody that has an idea, like a big idea, of what they think will help the world, as long as it doesn't involve killing other people or even speaking negatively about your fellow human being, period, right? That's a criterion. If you have an idea like that doesn't involve those things, but you know or believe it will help the species, which is what we're talking about here, what we all have in common, just start doing it, right? Just start doing it. If you have the idea, just start doing it, because the idea came to you, or was given to you, however you perceive where ideas come from. The idea came to you for a reason. It means that future that you see maybe as hopeful and good, right? If you're hopeful, if you're optimistic, or if you just in your faith have certitude, right? Those are the words. Certitude. You experience a sense of, actually everything's going to be okay. I'm actually, because ultimate reality, right? Ultimate reality will unfold in one way. No matter how you imagine multiverses, right? It's like, I understand that conception. Thinking there are innumerable possibilities, and thinking about, if you can imagine something, then you can imagine a person, right? You can create a universe in your mind, and those people really exist because you imagined it, right? I mean, you're going to have to break that down and analyze it, maybe play it back, but I do think I articulated myself properly. Could I repeat it is the question. But I don't need to go back and repeat it. It's documented, that's why, right? These ideas are occurring, and they're still occurring, so why go back? But here's the challenge to everyone who watches this. I mean, if you get this far in what I'm doing, right? If somebody sent you a link to this, whether you know my name, where I work, or what I'm working on, you may. Some of you will, obviously. It's like I sent you the link myself personally, and maybe you are one person removed from that person. Maybe somebody you trust and care about sent you a link to this podcast. The Here Goes Nothing podcast. That's, I guess, what it's going to read. I haven't even set that up yet, but September 4th is today. September 4th. Oh, did I mention this phone's going to ring? Maybe before I'm done recording. I'm trying to do an hour. Yes, that's going to be broken up, right? I'm going to do an hour that's broken up. And I'm about into... Geez, I do need to keep an eye on. So I'm in day 2 because of the length. I know I need to go. Yeah. Maybe even early day 2. No, it'll be midway. Day 2 will be a nice long one. Oh, gosh. I am glad that I finally got the setup right, because there is light. But I like this. Here's another thing that occurred to me recently. See, there an idea goes, and will it come back? Yeah, it's gone. See, you can also possibly be tracking the deterioration of my faculties, right? I just mispronounced a word and then got it right, and then so that's another potential, study topic, right? Another, like, somebody can psychoanalyze that. Maybe start their own podcast and psychoanalyze, who's this guy who's talking? Why has he decided to put his voice into the public discourse, right? He's like, oh, now I am doing an experiment that actually involves me talking to anybody who will listen, right? Just start talking. So that's my, challenge. That's what happened. Like, oh, I have this idea. Just do it. Okay, now I'm doing it. And then whatever the outcome is, we'll see. Is it interesting enough for people to start watching, right? Start watching this guy. He's just speaking off the top of his head. It's all I'm doing. I'm just opening my mouth. The preparation, there's plenty of preparation. I've been working on something for 2 years, okay? this is the tease. Like, I'm going to go back, right, and pick a date when things started happening, and ultimately I'm start the conversation from there and tell that story, a 2-year story, I guess. I don't know how long it'll take. Heck, it may take a year to tell a 2-year story, and then only another year, and you'll be a part of that story if you've been listening, right? You'll be involved in that story if this thing turns into something interesting to more people, just naturally, right? And that really is the experiment. The things is this idea of mine, this experiment of mine, even worth doing, period, right? It's like, well, I think there is a value to it. I recognize a value if what I think is going to happen on this project actually happens. And that is the premise I'm going on. I'm like, oh, I'm working on a project and I'm aiming very, very high with this project. This is going to be, it's not some Robert Rodriguez break-in, right? It's not Robert Rodriguez. I think that's the guy, right? El Mariachi and Spy Kids, right? That guy made a name for himself by figuring it out, how to do it by himself. And the technology has advanced so far in the culture from then. And it's like he inspired a whole, I don't know, movement among filmmakers. It's a paradigm shift. He led the way, and there's so many doing similar things, right? It's like that's where the culture is shaped, right? The culture is constantly transforming and taking shape, and there's a past, and the things that we did in the past that we approved of that are no longer good. Like, it's like, oh, we figured that out. It's like, oh, we shouldn't live that way. We shouldn't treat others that way. We shouldn't suppose that these differences we have are more important than they really are. It's like, we have differences, right? But we have similarities. Okay, oh, here's an idea I knew I was going to want to put into this. Oh my gosh. All right. I don't want to forget this. It'll come, these things that I'm talking about will come back later, but I have to trust that the words coming out of my mouth. If I forget what I was about to say, woo, that's either I was about to say something I shouldn't, right? I was like, ooh, I was going to disclose something that's probably too early to disclose, right? But it's definitely a story I want to tell. So I better analyze the story before I turn the camera on, right? Oh, it was a tease. All right, but it'll come back to me in the right order. You know, it just has to unfold in the right sequence. The thoughts that I'm having are leading me on a good course. Like, oh my gosh, like it's. Here we go. So I found a buried treasure. That was the instant sentiment, like the sensation that I felt. Oh my God. That was instantaneous. The moment I read certain words in a certain order, right? That's like boiled down. What was I doing? I was wondering where my future would lead me, right? Like I had come into a business that, oh my gosh, I had come into a business that the moment I realized that's what I wanted, like, wait, that's what I've always wanted to do. Why am I not aiming for that, right? It's something I've always wanted to do. Why am I not aiming in that direction? It's, if I analyze it and see if it's moral or immoral, right? I don't want to do something immoral. That's just my condition. My one condition is the thing that I want to do with my life should not hurt others, should not harm others. It should not harm, period, right? bring harm. What does that word mean? Harm. And that's where we start, right? We start by analyzing harm. What is harm to another person, right? And so I've got this project that just, because that's been my mindset from the beginning, I guess my eyes were adjusted. My creative eye? I don't know. Is that a word? Is that an expression? Creative eye. I'm a creator. I'm a storyteller. I'm other creative endeavors that I've been involved with for quite some time. So that's just the kind of person I am. So my creative eye was adjusted just so that I could see the value in this particular combination of words, right? This particular combination of words elicited something in me, inspired me. It's like, oh, I've got to tell this story. How come it hasn't been told already, right? Is this something that actually happened? Wait, why is this combination of words even here? Why is this combination of words here? Technology has made it possible for my eye to fall upon this combination of words. Yep, technology. Okay, where are we? Are we in day 3? Yeah, okay. There was a cut somewhere in there where I was drifting off, daydreaming. So now we're in day 3 of the release of information. I like this. The buried treasure that I saw with another set of eyes, right? That's the tease as a guy. You can call this performance art, yeah. I guess that's what it is. I have to regulate my speech, right? I told you there's this story, and I'm like, whoa. I cannot tell you what it's about yet, right? This thing that I stumbled across, and my eyes opened. That's as much as I can tell you. My eyes were adjusted so that I could see this combination of words. I'm not going to tell you where I found the combination of words yet. That'll all come out, right, as the story. If I'm going to pick a date in the past to be consistent with what I've decided to do, I'm going to pick a date in the past, and I start telling the story. 2 years ago, roughly, I think I've picked it. I have to look it up. Okay, a big reveal here. There's more information now coming available. Do I show it all? Okay, these are I have journals here, right? Oh, there. Perfect. Yeah, I have a couple of them, and it's just, there's like a digital that began on computer, and then there's another notebook that fits in between these that I just use for a little bit, just a few pages, tear those out or whatever. But these are the 2 main physical journals that I'm going to probably start reading at some point, right? I'm going to start reading from these. Maybe it's after I didn't. I read something. I put something on camera and didn't even check what it was, because somebody take a still frame of that right there, and I'm not going to edit this. Okay, I'm not going to edit this video. That's why it's set up like this. It's mostly catching audio. You can watch my staging, right? I'm putting something in the frame, but really it's the words that are coming out of my mouth, right? I'm speaking something. Oh, damn, I did. Okay, that it was okay to reveal. But something on the back, geez. I'll have to look at that later. If I take the time to look at it now, wait, maybe I can just check the heading. There's a heading on it, and you've all seen it. I don't remember what I just revealed. The offering. All right. Well, now that I've drawn attention to it, right, if I'm really going to go through with this, I've just exposed something early on. It will be figured out, right? But how long do I hold off on more information, right? still in day 3. Well, the phone hasn't rang yet. Like, the plumber is going to call. I was not even disclose that. So, based on how long I've been recording, this phone could ring anytime, or it won't. And I'm only going to go, I'm at the midpoint. I'm at the midpoint, so I'm in day 3. Midpoint of day 3, maybe. Early day 3. Oh, gosh. I guess I do have to watch this through one time and pick where to divide it up. But I'm pretty sure I'm in day 3. And if the phone rings, there will be a natural edit between day 3, 4, 5, something. I don't know. We'll see. Let's get back focused on whatever I was talking about. Okay. Okay. I will need to set up an email account. Maybe it'll be set up by the time I record this or release this episode. I hope to have it set up by then. But if not, however long it takes, right? That'll be part of the anticipation so that anybody that's watching can communicate. And I actually had decided I'm going to self-edit. Can I read live? I'm going to have to find a device to read live, maybe, when I open my email inbox. However many, I'll read everything in there. Just read, identify it somehow. And if it's from fans, or I don't even know what the word is, followers, right? That's Jesus. Did I really say that? Yeah, that word came out of my mouth. It entered the lexicon on day 3, right? This guy's lexicon is that the right word? Lexicon for an accumulation of knowledge and terminology. Right? The lexicon, what this guy says, so there's an analysis. Everybody gets psychoanalyzed. Everybody gets analyzed. And so that word came out on day 3, right? Marked down how many, like 30-something minutes in, whatever, total. If you take it as one single recording time, broken into pieces. Yeah, that's what it is. So why is this guy speaking the way he's speaking? Is he crazy? Right? Is he a lunatic? Is he evil? This is important. Like, you have to analyze why anybody says anything they say. Right? Don't make assumptions. Just like there's ulterior motives. You cannot. Does he have an ulterior motive? There's something behind this, and that's the terminology hit me. Was it yesterday? And I even looked it up, dictionary, see if I can remember the words. Extemporaneous. Okay, so I looked up extemporaneous, and I'm like, yep. Genuinely extemporaneous. The live art. Then unadulterated, right? Unadulterated. The words don't have previous tainting, right? What's the proper term when you take a word and make it mean something else? Like the original meaning forever disappears as the only meaning, right? And now it has another meaning. God. Yeah, so you alter or you use words to communicate other things. So instead of picking a new word for the thing, you just change this other word to mean something else. And that's how lies start getting told. It's like, you're distorting the facts, or you're changing lying. What causes people to lie? Okay, why would this guy make all this up? Well, if the promise is to just speak off the top of my head in public, I am being to me. I am, like, there's a play on words there too, right? Absolute. The most absolute me. Right? me, absolute me. That's all I'm being if I'm not pre-planning. I mean, there's certain pre-planning, and it's like there's a conversation going on between the hemispheres, really. Okay, so my daughter, there it is. Reveal. Told me the name of a guy, or showed me the artwork of a guy that's been around for a little while, and he has a lot of content. And I thought I'd heard of the name. I wrote it down in my diary wrong, and I'm going to still correct it. So this is in between. Like, I wrote it down. There's another person with the first name and the first initial of the second name, the last name. There's similarities enough, and I wrote down the wrong name. I got the first name right and the last name off. It's interesting cultural commentary on those two different names. You could go into psychoanalyze them, which will maybe happen if this turns into anything. Like if this video starts being watched by lots of people, which is part of the experiment. Like, will that happen? You have to ask hypotheses, right? You have to ask more questions if you're doing research. You don't just start with one and wait. You watch what happens, and you maybe even hypothesize what might happen. You got to determine, he's doing this, and these are his constraints. He's not going to reveal all of them, right? He's not going to reveal all his constraints, because that's also part of the experiment. He's the anonymity, exclusivity, whatever those words. It's like the experiment means doing it a certain way, and you just do it and hypothesize what might happen. And so those hypotheses, the risk of speaking extemporaneously is misspeaking all the time, using wrong words. So, but at least at least I'm enjoying myself. I mean, the project I'm working on is so fulfilling. I mean, it's like, I can't believe. All right, so this is utter me, right? I'm just talking about what I'm doing right now. What I'm going to do right after I finish recording this, I'm going to finish a section of something I'm working on, right? Like, there's pieces you have to do in the project. You got lots of different pieces, and I'm managing all of them right now myself, like completely, like all the musicians involved in this project. I'm like, I don't have the money to pay anybody anything right now. And it's like, I'm going to do it. And what I'm doing is I'm about 25% through the most important beginning point for the project, right? It's like, for things to happen the way you want them to happen, they have to happen in a certain order. The same way as putting words together in a sentence for it to make sense. It has to happen in a certain order. Certain things need to be there for it to even function as a sentence, right? So the project has to happen in a certain order, and there's this monumental kind of beginning, a milestone, whatever you call it. There's different words for it to get the point across, but like seismic is too spectacular a word for this. What I'm looking for. There are seminal. I think that's probably the best word. I used that in a conversation the other day, and I'm like, yeah, there's a seminal moments in different stories, right? It's like something happens that turns the course of the story. So that happens continually in a long story. So the seminal moments keep coming, and so here's a seminal moment in my experience of the project I'm working on. And that is the buried treasure. It's like, ooh, yeah. That's a great thing about buried treasure. Let's use that metaphor and let's dig into it a bit. Right. Let's dig into what it means to have a buried treasure. Well, you analyze this thing laying on the ground in front of you that you've discovered. If it was buried, then this landscape has changed. Because it wasn't buried when I found it. I mean, it was kind of buried. I could have walked right by it. Could have walked right by it. Glad I got a cup of water. Day 4. Maybe still day 3. Just rambling on. Extemporaneously. Just keep the lips moving. Alright, we're going to get back to talking about the buried treasure here in a sec. Maybe tomorrow. But I did bring water. It's all. I figured maybe I could get through an hour with that. And 40 minutes, 56, 57 seconds in. Right? This is just all of this is going to get posted. All of it. It's one of the other criterion for the experiment. It's like, not only am I speaking extemporaneously, but you do not edit the file. I mean, you cut it into pieces and release it in pieces for people who consume smaller pieces, right? Some people consume larger pieces of media. Some people consume shorter pieces of media. So, I mean, eventually the experiment will broaden into other sizes of pieces of media. Like, I have phrases I could just use in 5-second blurts, like what, and then 2-minute, 5-minute, 7-minute. I mean, there's all these different times that people can tolerate. People have different attention spans, and so this I've broken into 2, I think, consumable sizes for people. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. All right, buried treasure. Think about a piece of land where you are walking. It's like, where are you on the planet? Literally, right? You're walking around on the surface of the planet of Earth. The only planet. Period, right? That's the planet. That's the entire universe, really, for humans. Yeah, so, I mean, we'll go into science and stuff, too. I love science. It's one of my... But, so you're walking around on the planet, somewhere, and right in front of you, it's like, how close? Like, it wasn't sticking up, necessarily. So you're walking, it's just under the surface, right? Literally, you have to be walking in the exact right path to even see it. If you're literally... any trajectory in any other direction, you don't see it. You just are on the right trajectory. You're going this way, going in a particular direction. And it's, you either stumble, you either kick the corner of it because the top layer is so thin that's camouflaging it on the horizon. You either stumble on it or you step on it. You land on it. And actually it's just occurring to me that is the sensation, right? This is the first time I'm describing in detail how I felt when I first read that combination of words, that led me on this journey. Not quite 2 years ago, actually. There was a prior event that was a little over 2 years ago, but coming up, not quite 2 years ago, we'll come up upon that anniversary, 2-year anniversary of when my eyes first came across that combination of words. But I landed on top of it and I stopped. So we're talking about walking around. He's like, whoa, my feet are on something that I know is valuable. Wait a minute, I'm standing on it. I can feel it under me. You start clearing it off, and you start opening it up, and it's like, whoa. Not only is it a buried gold chest, like a chest, one of those large trunk chests of just most glorious, rare items. You think about those items in that. Why are they rare? Because clearly they're antiques, like they come from antiquity. They've been here undisturbed. Seems like forever. You know, you go into coins with dates on them and you find the oldest coin, and this thing's like, oh my gosh, just the fact that this is the oldest coin quadruples or quintuples its value, and everything else is all super valuable because it's all made of fine metals and jewels. And so that's this glorious treasure that you're standing on. And it's like, wait, you can close it up and look around you. You're standing on it. And I'm like, where am I? What does it take for me to keep standing here? Right? I got to leave it here and go sell all that I have. Now, there's a parable that goes like that. Sell all that I have. You know, the guy sells all that he has, standing on this treasure. He comes back and he buys, does whatever it takes to own everything around this thing. Like, I'm going to buy this field that I'm standing on. I'm going to stay standing on it, and I'm going to build on this treasure so that everybody can see it at some point. It's got to happen a certain way, but I'm the only one who can do it. I'm the only one who can do it? What? Right, that's what happened. Oh my gosh, so I found this treasure. So when you're thinking about, that's being an analogy or a metaphor. I've forgotten more things that I remember. Right? That's why speaking extemporaneously may bring me across things that I've known in the past that I forgot, like this instance, metaphor, analogy. So the buried treasure is just a verbal metaphor for a thing I've been working on for the last 2 years. Whew. And it has commandeered my every waking moment. I found a way. I guess. I mean, or the way found me. Like I'm on this path that I'm following instinctively, just as the words are unfolding from my lips. The faith that I have that I'm not going to disclose something valuable and important. Ooh, you know, it's like, can I do that? And at least for an hour a week, maybe more, but an hour a week will start. Like, just do a session. Do a session where you get to see the horn rim. These are so scratched up if you did an analysis of these glasses that I have. Oh my gosh, yeah, so we're at, okay. Cut point, maybe. Hello, are we in? Certainly in the middle of day 4. Or at the very beginning of day 5. Oh, yeah, okay. End of day 4, beginning of day 5. Yeah. So there were 2 big stories that I was going to possibly tell in the first week, but I didn't. I didn't tell them. They're going to happen at some point, probably very soon. But here's the experiment. Oh, by the way, so rude of me. We're this far in. We're definitely at the end of the first week, and I have to wrap it up. The first file. Like, we're gonna have the full thing uncut. You know, you've seen it all. By the end of this video you're watching right now, you will have seen the entirety if you've watched it all from the beginning of the week. This is the 5th installment of the first. What do you call it? Researchers are, when people, when they do an experiment, there's a name for when you have the subject and you expose the subject to the medium, or like, okay, let's put the mouse in the maze, right? And then, so the trials. Oh, okay, yeah. So maybe this is the end of the first trial. Let's have another trial and see what happens. That doesn't quite capture the meaning I'm looking at, but because it's an ongoing experiment, there will be different installments. Like the first installment of the process that will be analyzed. It will be analyzed later because it can't be analyzed previously, so it's like redundant to even say it later. But it will be analyzed. It begins being analyzed, I guess, by someone immediately, like Mom. Here it is. Like, there's a certitude that somebody's going to watch it. Like, even if one person watches it, literally, to me, at the very least, from just talking to my mom, she understands every word I'm saying first, and she enjoys it. It's like if I called my mom and talked to her for an hour in a monologue once a week, or a short phone call every day, a 15-minute phone call or 10-minute phone call every day. But it's more like a monologue rather than a conversation. And so, and that is an idea. I'm not going to say it. No, there's this other idea that I had that I'm going to self-edit right now and not say it. Oh, I never came out of the darkness. Not yet. Yeah, that's another thing. It's like, will he come out of the darkness? I do have to watch it back once. Okay, sorry. So I'm getting distracted. You can, because I'm just speaking extemporaneously, I'm speaking my thoughts. So you're actually going to, well, you have been all along. Self-diagnosis. All along, I have been just speaking my thoughts, right? So you're reading my mind if you watched this whole week, right? You read my mind for an hour, right? I have not, obviously there's been some preparation going into this. There's been a lot of preparation going into this. And man, if the video quality of this is substandard, oh well, right? It'll change. It's really about what I'm saying. But at least there is some creative medium. Like I found a laboratory, a little lab where I can disappear into the darkness. But the light is always there. My mom's gonna love this shit. Ooh, there. Okay. So, here's what I'm gonna do. We're gonna, at some point, obviously not in the first week, but maybe by next week, have an email address, right? Have an email address. So talk to the camera. I'll have an email address where you can ask questions. And ask me about cursing, right? I'll tell a story about the vow, right? Am I gonna do that? There's a vow I thought about. And so, since this is extemporaneous, you can make decisions and be held accountable, right? In the moment. When you're not speaking out loud, you can think better about ideas you have, right? If you're mistaken about things, if you're thinking things that are incorrect, which we all do, we all have incorrect assumptions about any number of things. We're all wrong. It's not our fault that we're wrong. It's just the information that's been presented to us in our life. That's all we have to work with. If we're not encouraged to research anything ourselves, the history, like look into what really happened. Is it possible to even know, right? Ooh, there it is. So ask me any of these questions once we have the email set up. I'm hinting at some of the discussion that's going to happen inevitably, because those are the things I've been thinking about, right? I'm just going to talk about things I've been thinking about for 1 hour a week right now, and we'll see where it goes from there, but the experiment starts. The experiment has started, and I'm grateful for anyone that cares to watch it. There are a whole bunch of people that I've come into contact with as a result of this project. A lot of them. And it's impossible to keep everybody updated. Like, how do you filter through what you can tell different people, right? Everybody's got a different interest in this project, right? The great thing is there's a virtual unanimity among every single person I've talked to about this project. It's like, whoa, unanimity. Everybody agrees. Every person I've spoken to about this project agrees that it is a worthy endeavor, a worthy project. And I'm not talking about the podcast. I'm talking about the thing I'm working on, that the podcast is documenting right now. Okay, in the email, if I don't talk about it next week, remind me to talk about Peter Jackson's King Kong, what happened. For me, it was a seminal moment in my journey, but it was a long time ago. I mean, I'm going to tell the last 2 years, but if anybody even remembers that movie, it wasn't bad. But there's already been another King Kong, Peter Jackson's King Kong. Ooh, was that a Freudian slip? Hong? I said Hong instead of King. I didn't, if you've already been tracking the date, or if you pay attention to what's going on in your world at all, then that slip right there will mean something. Okay, so there's a lot to process here. If you want to, I mean, I don't know. I don't know who's going to gravitate to this. I don't know who this fan base is yet, but I think it'll start with some of the people that I've talked to about this project, some that are involved maybe with it. Fan base, right? Just saying, focus on that. It's like fans or followers, right? So some of this is going to be processed instantly, immediately. I mean, I know 2 people, right, that want it. But I could probably list maybe 100 that I've come into contact with in the past 2 years. But they're also connected to so many more like-minded individuals as well. So I don't know. It's going to be a challenge. Oh, and it's hot in here. I gotta open that door. There's a door back there. There's light at the end. No, actually, there's light everywhere. All the time. Just open her eyes and look around. Oh, geez. Back to the metaphors. I want to leave off this week with one very, very important message. Words that come out of your mouth. The words that come out of your mouth are you. The words that come out of your mouth are you. Why are you saying the things you're saying? Even if you don't believe them, right? I mean, I don't know. There are people that say things that they act differently. I mean, that's a fact. People act differently at different times, let's say. They're swayed to and fro by different arguments, and there seems to be a logic to healthy human behavior. Healthy human behavior. Are those the words? The right words? Human behavior has a optimum function or state of being, right? Once anger and hatred, like irrational anger and hatred, are gone, right? Once that is gone, then humans can start agreeing and cooperating, right? Agreeing and cooperating. There are misunderstandings, and how do you get through all the misunderstandings? How do you get people to fess up when they have been wrong? It's a supreme humility, or it's almost like a supernatural endowment. Like, how could you really forgive? How could you really forgive some of those things? Like some of the worst things you can imagine, right? Never mind. Let's not go there, but there are people suffering in this world. All of us have suffered, so we know it. And if that could stop, period, right? If everybody in the world who is suffering right now, unlike, many who watch this kind of stuff are not suffering that bad. We all have things we suffer. We all go through things that stress and cause heightened emotions or whatever, and often irrational action. So it starts with overlooking past wrongs, yeah. Even when you've been wronged, we've all been wronged, so we know. Sometimes unintentionally, sometimes very intentionally. Can you forgive the intentional wrongs, right? All right. Set my cutoff point. I think we're there. There we go.